Hey, everybody. Pastor Shay once again, host of Pause with a Pastor. Blake's here. He's over there on my screen. Matt's over there. Demo's down there. Scott's down there. It's the Fab Five here for
Fab Five.
another edition. I know you like that. You like that
Yes.
reference?
Fab Five.
Well, I should just admit this right now live. I did not grow up with a television or comic books. So I think that's a reference to comics, but I'm not exactly sure.
What do you mean you didn't
You
grow
know,
up?
Yeah, I don't know. I
Television?
genuinely don't know.
Tebow knows. Tebow, enlighten Shay as we open Pause with the Pastors. Fab Five is a patented term. Tell him what it is.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, Pastor Scott, this is a reference to the Fab Five who played for Michigan.
Absolutely. Fab Five, all freshmen, got to the title game. Chris Webber was on that team. Jalen Rose was on that team. Jimmy King was on that team. And they were five fabulous freshmen, and they kind of created their own culture. And they are the Fab Five, Shay.
Well,
Scott,
welcome
hey.
to our.
Hold on, Shay. This is important.
Didn't have a TV.
Okay, hold on. Hold
I have
on.
to add something.
Matt has a word.
I think that two more people belong in this group. I have here, as part of my initiation, this showed up in my office this week, and this is a picture.
Yes.
Picture.
Scott Artavanis.
Is that
Is
Johnny?
that Magic Johnson?
That's the Magic Man.
These two
Dude,
need to
that's-
be drafted into the Fab Five right there.
There we go. I was a counselor at his basketball camp, and we had a great time. So that's funny. How'd you get that picture? Come
I
on.
don't know. It just showed
It's
up in my office.
framed.
I have two additions.
Here we go.
Number one, I think I would like to know what positions we would all play if we're on the same basketball team.
Oh.
And secondly, I'm with Shay. I also grew up without a TV, Blake. So my family did not have a TV until I was
No.
13.
Oh.
That would have been a great fact for the my game show.
Yeah, sorry.
Demo.
We're going to segue into the game show here in just a second.
No, but I need to know about the positions. I mean, Shay's got the height, so that makes
Yes.
him. Is he our center, or like how's that work?
Yes, he'd be the center and a five.
Okay.
We call him number five.
Scott, do you want one or two? Do you want to be the shooting guard or the point guard?
I think I'd take point guard. I'd put you at shooting guard. Okay. I'd put you at two, maybe three. Demo as the defensive specialist on the
Power
fastest
forward,
guy on the
actually.
team.
I'm really excited to hear what you're going to say about Blake.
Me too.
Blake would be the power forward.
That's what I'm,
He would be the four.
that's what I'm talking about.
And Shay would be five. He'd be posting.
Does that mean I'm just like under the basket, as they say?
But you're versatile, though, at the same time.
Listen, I played a foot game. It's most of the world knows it as football, but America somehow changed it to soccer, which is unfortunate. So, but I was still in the middle. So that's the best
There
I
you
got.
go.
I'm also just noticing that Micah left his sandwich right there. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. That's what's going on in the background.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, we've got to move on. We've got to transition. I've almost for a second there forgot we were live, and we're just talking basketball. I'm glad to know that Blake's a power forward, and he's going to go hard up the middle.
Yes.
We've got to go to our game show. This is a new addition to Positive Pastor, and it's really the question of two people in our church. Is this a story about Newt, as in Newt Weimer, or is it a story about Demo? And I'm gonna pass the ball. You like that? Pass the ball over to Blake Boyce, who's gonna power through. I'll hang out under the basket. Blake, give us a Newt or Demo.
Okay, well, I'll say the quote or the fact, and then you guys decide, and then we'll just go through each of you what who you think it is and why. Okay. So we'll start with an easy one. I worked at Bethlehem Steel Plant in Pennsylvania.
Ooh.
I think that's easy. It's
Demo.
too easy. It's Demo.
Scott?
Yeah, I'm pausing. Demo grew up there, but at the same time, working at a steel plant, that's got Newt all over it for steel. But I'd have to go with Demo.
Okay, so 3 Demos. Demo, would you like to share who that was?
Yeah, so my granddad worked at Bethlehem Steel his entire career. There was never a
What?
time that my granddad was not at Bethlehem Steel. And then
What?
my dad worked at Bethlehem Steel.
No.
Although my granddad told him he wouldn't teach him welding because he said, I'm afraid that you will just follow in my footsteps and I don't want you to live the rest of your life working here at this steel mill. So he wouldn't let him learn welding. And as the third in that line of Morris's, I did not work at Bethlehem Steel ever, not even once.
Newt Weimer.
That's
No!
right.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
That is a
I-
curveball.
I'm in shock.
Yes.
I'm
This
shocked too.
This is a great game show. You didn't realize how good of a game show this
But
was.
you got to be careful how you say it.
I was 30.
Yeah.
That's not right.
Yeah.
No way. But Demo, you are like the biggest Steelers fan, are you not?
Yeah. Well, I like the Steelers.
That's amazing. And though your grandfather, dad worked there, the correct answer is Newt.
That's right.
That's shocking.
Yep.
It really is.
Welcome to the show.
All right, I'm down a point. So are we gonna go one more?
One more?
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
open.
Sorry.
He just starts laughing.
I own a juice harp and spoons. You know, a juice harp and so juice harp is the wang 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 wang, and then spoons. Okay.
Now I don't know.
Gosh. I think,
Tebow, you gotta
I'm
make a
gonna go-
call.
Wait, Demo can't answer?
No, Tebow.
Tebow, what's up?
Sorry.
I'm going with Demo because last time it was not Demo.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm gonna swim upstream and I'm gonna go Newt Weimer.
Okay.
That one.
Scott.
I'm going Demo because I thought he was in a harmonica quartet.
That's true. That is very true. And yet it was Newt Weimer.
Yeah.
No!
Yep. Shay wins. Shay wins
Can't believe it.
Back in the game.
at 0 with 0 points. Shay wins.
Hey, not showing off, not slacking off. That's all I gotta say. All right, we good?
We're good.
We don't want to break any ties. Okay, we've got an unboxing we have to
I've got one more. I mean, if you want it.
We'll come back to you. We're gonna put you in the corner for a while.
I'm gonna put you.
We've got an unboxing. Scott just got an Amazon.com delivery /coronavirus. No, we can't say
Yes.
that. We can't say that. But we need to unbox this. We told Scott he wasn't allowed to unbox this without us because, well, it's just fun to unbox things. There's whole YouTube channels dedicated to unboxing things. So Scott,
Really?
let's get the reveal right now. What do we
Well,
got? What came
you know, I'm sure I would speak the language of every pastor. Really, our life is about tools. And often those tools, some of them are technology, but for the most part, they're books. And so we have a class going on that will start Monday for the Master's Seminary. We're the Central Valley location, and it's on prayer. So I think this is likely a book on prayer. Let me open this. And wow, yes, it is. It's called Taking Hold of God, the Reformed and Puritan Perspectives on Prayer. And this is edited by Joel Beeke. I know Joel Beeke, and he is a very good writer. And so this is a book that's required reading for our prayer class that will start on Monday for the Master's Seminary. So super excited to tie into that prayer class. Of course, Matt will be in that class. Our own Casey Banks will be in that class. And then there's some other guys joining us by way of Zoom and a guy in Fresno as well. So we're excited about that. But Taking Hold of God, Reformed and Puritan Perspectives on Prayer, edited by Joel Beeke. There you have it.
So that class, it's what's it called? Praying with
It's
a pastor?
The pastor in prayer, or praying and the pastor.
Yep.
And it's about the role of prayer in pastoral ministry. And one of the things that's just been a thrilling thing for my heart is I'm going to finish up that second weapon, offensive weapon that we can call prayer on Sunday for Grace Church of the Valley. And I'm excited about that. And I know that Demo is doing something on prayer tomorrow in people helping people. So it's been just an exciting time for my own heart, for the class, as well as for the preaching on the Lord's Day.
Yeah, I was gonna let Demo just Scott, you mentioned that about what's happening, but Demo, tell us what's happening on Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm excited to be making prayer the focus of our class on Wednesday night. So I'm going to actually be doing a discussion that night. I'll teach a little bit, and then I'm going to do a discussion with Jason Egley. So Jason's someone in our church that has been really helpful for me and my heart as we have talked pretty consistently about prayer. And Jason's a great example of living a lifestyle of earnest and significant prayer. So I'm really looking forward to interviewing him and walking through some of his favorite resources on prayer, some prayer habits, and then really trying to connect that to what are the kinds of things we ought to be praying about at this time during coronavirus, and how does this have an impact on our prayer lives. So we want to be practical and helpful. We also want to be theological tomorrow night. So yeah, if you want to join us, I really think sometimes when we talk about prayer, it's easy for us to feel a sense of maybe conviction, or a lot of people, you say prayer and a lot of people kind of cringe and they're like, oh, I don't pray like I wish I would. And yet I think the path forward for us in prayer is to be encouraged at what God intends to do through prayer. And instead of adding a pile of guilt and weight that says you don't pray enough, you don't pray good enough, for us to keep reminding ourselves of the blessing that prayer is and what God has for us in prayer. So I hope it'll be an encouraging night, and I'm looking forward to talking with Jason about it. So
Awesome.
Love to have you.
Hey, that's great. Yeah, and I think that all that information for that class gets emailed out, or there's I think information on the website too. So you definitely want to get involved with that. Thanks, Demo. I do want to move just a little bit back to your sermons last few weeks, Scott. Kind of maybe giving a recap about what you've been teaching and kind of where you're headed and that, just for a minute.
Yeah, just a recap. I mean, obviously we finished the Gospel of John. Took us a number of years, and so thankful to be able to finish that. I actually finished that the first 2 weeks of the shelter in place. I think it was March 22nd, March 29th. So I was at a transition, greatly looking forward to go to the book of Ephesians. Have been preparing for that. But after Easter, I wanted to just give a perspective on the role of anxiety and worry, and not just for the coronavirus, but just to help our people. And I've not felt like our people have struggled with it. I want to equip our people to help family and friends. And there were kind of two passages in my mind. The first was in Matthew 6, 4 separate times the Lord Jesus says, do not be anxious then. And so he exhorted us to not be anxious. And then he said in Matthew 6:30, basically, O ye of little faith. So at the times when we find ourselves anxious, he just kind of exhorted us that our faith was little. And so that thought led me to the second passage, which was in Ephesians, on the shield of faith, which will allow us to extinguish the flaming missiles of the evil one. And then after I got done with that, I just thought, hey, let me take them to the sword of the Spirit and all prayer. And I got to the sword of the Spirit on Sunday, and then I will finish that little section in Ephesians 6 on all prayer. The reason I call it all prayer is in 6:18, there is 4 all mentions to pray, at all times or always, to pray with all prayer and supplication, to pray with persistence, and to pray for all the saints. It gives us a real guideline. And, maybe just back to what Demo said, my own heart has been so encouraged, because I feel like all the time, maybe David, as you said, there's just a nagging feeling that we ought to be praying more. And that would be true at times and seasons, but my heart's been encouraged for this week that Paul said praying at all times. In other words, our whole life ought to be a reflection of our dependence on God, in God, on prayer, and it ought to be a way of life. And so it's really just encouraged me to walk in the Spirit, to worship, to lift prayer up, and super excited. I get super good response from our body. I just want to be helpful to them in those subjects with the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. And now it's not that prayer is a weapon, but that prayer is to undergird all the pieces of the armor. So really looking forward to that, even this Lord's Day.
Yeah, that'll be great. That's
Yeah.
cool. Okay. Well, I've got a couple, I feel like I've got a grab bag of different questions.
Yeah.
That, either we've come up with, or guys or people have sent, some people in our church have sent.
Yeah.
Here's one that should be just hopefully a real quick one. But what is your favorite non-Christian book? Do you have a non-Christian book that stands out that you're like, this one's one that always is always, I don't know if it's a novel, if it's a leadership book, hit me. What do you guys like?
Oh.
I know. Now you're checking. You're like, what's the rating on that book?
Probably good. For me, it's good to great. It's a pretty
great.
well-known book, but I enjoy that one.
Yeah, good to great. You can expound on that. I've read that one. That's obviously a business book. What stood out to you though about that book?
Yeah, just those core intangibles of what make leaders effective leaders, not necessarily linked in with any one personality or any temperament, but there are certain core qualities that can not only be indicative of a leader, but even of their entire organization, their institution, that takes that company or that business to the next level. And of course, I'm reading a book like that, mining it for principles for spiritual leadership.
Mhm.
Yeah, that book is fascinating, right? They took 10 companies, and used all the public information available about them and what took them from being good to great. It's impossible for me to walk into Walgreens and not think about that book because they mentioned Walgreens in that book. So there you go. Good to great. Okay. A leadership book. Fascinating one. Okay. What else? Demo, come on, man. I know that you're going to be mad at me because I told you to choose one.
I know.
So.
I that's what I was going to say. How can I just say one? I was just literally the other day, I was just thinking about my mom and dad, and I'm so thankful for my mom and dad's faith in the gospel and for how they taught me that the Bible is true. I would say this, outside of what my parents taught me to believe, the single thing that I'm most thankful for their parenting is how they taught me to love reading. So, we were in the library all the time. They read to us before we could read. They pushed us to read. I just think that has had literally a profound impact on the rest of my life. Just the fact that they taught me to love reading and to love words and to love good writing. So I'm incredibly grateful to my parents for that, outside of what they've done in the Bible. So I guess I'll throw out my favorite, but then I have to throw in one more. I'm sorry. All right. Sure. So I think my favorite is possibly Lord of the Flies. I loved Lord of the Flies because of how vivid a picture it paints of human depravity, quite apart from any kind of biblical kind of vantage point or worldview that was really engaging and really kind of horrifying in how vividly it paints the human condition. So I think it's one of those fiction books that is really well written that just really grabs you with this is how bad we really are as humans. So it's great illustrative, and it's a really engaging read. The second thing I'd say as a series, so I have grown up loving Louis L'Amour and his Westerns, and he wrote a whole series about this family called the Sacketts. He actually starts in England, and then they actually end up coming over in the early colonial days. But Louis L'Amour, I think I've read every book that Louis L'Amour has written.
Wow.
So I'm a big Louis
How
L'Amour.
many was that, David? How many books?
Just in the Sackett series, or like
Yeah.
all together?
Yeah, altogether did he?
Oh, it's hundreds. I don't know
Yeah.
what the number is. Yeah. He didn't just write Westerns. He also wrote a fantastic middle-aged drama called The Walking Drum. He wrote a modern book about a fighter pilot that crashes called Last of the Breed. Anyway, I'm a huge Louis L'Amour fan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Scott, Blake, favorite non-Christian book?
I would say, I was just looking back at my Kindle. You know, I was in that conversation. I'm trying to think, about a year and a half ago when I was walking through Al Mohler's library.
Yeah.
And just, you know, it'd be too long for this pause with the pastors. He took my wife and I through his personal library, and just a fascinating discussion with him. But I asked him about the author. I always want to make sure I say it right. Dostoevsky, you know, the Russian author. And I said, Al, my son likes him as an author. And Al looked at me without a smile, with a, you know, utter straight face. He said, Scott, there's no way that you could understand the Western civilization without understanding his writing. And I was a bit embarrassed. I mean, I obviously heard of him. He's world renowned. But when I came back, I read two of his books. The famous one, of course, is Crime and Punishment, which in many ways is a masterpiece. And then the other one that I read that I loved just as much was The Brothers Karamazov. And so good, the way he can paint characters and in some ways bring it back to a worldview that instructs us even as believers. So his insights are fascinating. He writes in such a way you want to keep reading and not put it down. And those books were great. And then I read those two. And then last year I read The Tale of Two Cities, of course, that famous book by Charles Dickens. Fabulous. So I like to do that. It feeds my mind. And I love reading about a great writer who captures the characters in such a way. But those guys are both brilliant writers. I've been listening to Moby Dick, that book, on Audible as much as I can. So I do like to vary that, Shay. I think it's important to do that.
That's cool. Okay, Blake.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I want to say Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, but is that considered non-Christian?
I know, that's a good question. Yeah. It definitely has Christian themes.
Yeah, it's got the. I mean, That's why I love it so much though too. So it's hard for me to. But I was gonna say Crime and Punishment too. I remember that sticking out to me. Yeah. Just even reading that in high school, that was a, you know. And then, well, I won't keep going, but I was gonna say To Kill a Mockingbird too is a classic, but
Here's one.
I just read it first time this year. I finished it. First time in my entire life.
What'd you think, Shay, of that one?
I liked it a lot more than I thought. I had no idea about what time period it was in. I knew nothing. Mm-hmm. So as a 35-year-old reading that book, I mean, she is definitely a very good writer. And I think she was actually Harper Lee. She was being celebrated yesterday. I think it might have been her birthday. Obviously she's long gone, but I know that I saw that that was coming up online, but yeah, I just read that one. Man, it's even a hard question for me to answer. You know, it's funny though, the books that are sticking out, I think are historical nonfiction. I mean, some of those stories like Boys in the Boat just really captured my mind, and that story is so good.
Great book.
Yeah, that Unbroken is in that same, same vein. Just great writing and great stories.
Hey, Shay.
Yeah.
Did you see the movie Unbroken?
I have not.
You know, it was interesting because the director of Unbroken, the movie, was Angelina Jolie. And, you know, she captured part of the story with Louis, but nothing like the book. Oh. The book, it was transforming, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
It just kept getting better and better.
I mean, So, and again, I mean, the other one, I think it sticks out, and this would be like more like Blake, where is a Christian, non-Christian. It's definitely written from an unbeliever, but it's the book For the Glory, about the story of Eric Liddell. And it goes well beyond the movie Chariots of Fire into his work as a missionary. And that book is fantastic.
Wow.
So those are the ones that I think stick out. But okay, so but on the topic of books, let's move into the Christian world. And let's get really really in the Christian world, because favorite book of the Bible. I think sometimes, like obviously we have 66 to choose from, but which one for you guys kind of sticks out? This will be interesting. I've never heard any of you guys talk about this.
I'm smiling, Shay,
It's
because
the one you just preached.
when you're, it's whatever you preached.
Yeah.
I can't tell you, I don't have to go off on it, but I think Ephesians is going to be life-changing for me and for our church. And just as I've been immersed in it after the Gospel of John, it is just so transforming. It's the power of the Word of God. I can't wait to get to that book. And I've loved that book really my whole life since I've been a believer.
So I think just to that point, I think I was 19 the first time I ever heard Scott preach. And I think you preached out of Ephesians 1 on the local church, where God's glory is reflected in the local church.
Yeah.
I can remember that sermon. And
Wow.
I'm actually really looking forward to it years later, hearing you preach through that again. I don't think you preached the whole book by any means. I think it was just like a series you were doing.
I can't wait. I don't know. That's me. I love that book. I love James, but love to hear the other guys as well.
Yeah, I think for me.
Go ahead, Blake.
Yeah, no, go ahead. It's
I
like
was gonna
those,
say,
those Zoom meetings where we're talking at the same time.
Yeah. So go ahead. No, it's fine. Yeah. So I heard Scott's encouragement. It's now been a couple of weeks ago that he encouraged us as families to be reading through Ephesians, ahead of time. And so, I want to be faithful to that. But that also kind of motivated me I want to see how much of Ephesians I can memorize while we're in the book of Ephesians. So I guess I'm now accountable to you guys and whoever else is listening. But I really want to see how much of Ephesians I can memorize as we work through it. So, that's all I was going to say on Ephesians. So,
all right. Well, now we're all holding you accountable. They're going to be asking.
Yeah.
I better just start spitting out verses.
Well, I think next week. I mean, we got to see what you've got so far.
Oh, to preach it?
Oh, no, he's gonna recite it right here on Pause with the Pastor.
Pause with the Pastor. I want to hear.
Oh, okay, for sure.
I'm only 3 chapters in, but that's all right.
Yeah.
Did you say?
I'm just kidding.
I was like, whoa.
What?
Can you do it now?
Hey,
memory system.
Shay and Demo too. What is so good about that book? It just seems like there's so many things in the 21st century that are capturing the hearts of people on what the church is. But the real issue is let's get back to what the Word of God declares the church to be and do. And I think it's going to be a refreshing time and a defining time for us. So I'm just personally really looking forward to defining that.
That's cool.
I was going to say my favorite book, I think even growing up, especially in my junior high school years, was Philippians.
Yeah.
And specifically going to chapter 4, verse 8, finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. I was definitely a worrisome thinker as a kid. And then like lately, I think as an adult, the example obviously of Christ's humility in chapter 2 is just, anytime I'm complaining, anytime I think I deserve anything, it's just a constant reminder that, Christ was willing to set aside his glory, and I don't have any glory. So, what am I willing to set aside to die to myself and follow Christ's examples? So, Philippians is mine.
Demo, did you say what book?
I didn't know.
Okay,
I would probably say for me, Romans. So I love the book of Romans. I love the kind of logical and judicial layout that Paul has as he works through Romans. Romans was something that God used in my life in some really particular ways. One is the book of Romans that I was reading one day after, I even hate to say, shooting some basketball because I don't even fit in the same class as, Scott or other.
But we're Fab Five. We are Fab Five.
Me.
yeah, maybe Blake and I should be on the same
superheroes
but-
or sorry,
Yeah,
Dino.
so I still remember that day. We had a basketball hoop on our property. And I'd been shooting, and it was one of those times. It was the middle of the afternoon, and I just thought, man, I need to go read my Bible. And I went and I read Romans 10, and it talked about how they're going to hear without a preacher and how they're going to preach unless they're sent. And I identify that as the first time that I felt that specifically I should go into full-time ministry.
Wow.
And so that was a hugely impactful moment in a pretty young heart at that age, at that time. Romans is where I learned that because I'm justified by faith, I have peace with God, which freed me. The book of Romans is what God used to free me from a kind of a legalistic mindset that was always working to try to earn God's favor. Even though I think at that point, I think I believed the true gospel, but was constantly caught in the fear of, I don't love God enough. I don't do enough for God. And really grasping the concept that I have been declared righteous by faith means that that's what I have peace with God for. There's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. I still remember that was probably college for me when it's like I read there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus for the first time. And it was just like a ray of sunshine in my life that said, I am free from condemnation. God cannot love me less. I am under no condemnation whatsoever. So, yeah. And you have all of those, 11 chapters of amazing theology of justification, and then followed with just such probing application throughout the rest of Romans. I'm so thankful for Paul's, not only his theological clarity, but how immensely practical the book of Romans gets in what it looks like to live a life, having a renewed mind that's conformed to God and not being conformed to this world, but is renewed. And what that looks in our earthly relationships, in even our understanding of the church. So anyway, I love the book of Romans.
Demo, how old were you when you read that from Romans 10? Was that the time when you were 14? How old were you?
Yeah, 14. Kathy's going to laugh because she always makes fun of me for that. But yeah, I was 8 when I was reading that in Romans. And that was the first time that I really felt like this is what I ought to be doing. When I was 14, I was at a missions conference.
That's right.
And that missions conference was really, we got to the end of the week and no high pressure whatsoever. But the guy just said, if you feel like, maybe full-time ministry is what God has for you, then you can respond. And I did that day at the end of that missions conference. And so that was a much more probably mature, even 14, obviously I had a ton of developing to do, but I think it was a much more mature response as a 14-year-old, obviously, than as a younger kid. But
yeah,
Go ahead.
Okay.
Well, I was going to take a risk here because I thought I heard you were talking about the judicial pieces of Romans. Did I hear right? Was Kathy considering going into law at one point in her life?
Yeah, that's right. She was headed to law school before I told her that I loved her and changed the course of her life. So, yeah. True story.
Oh man.
She was a political science major, and that's kind of designed to funnel into law school. So
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So kids, if you're 8 years old and you're reading your Bible, I'm just joking. Sorry. Yeah, go there.
Hey, Shay, you never know. Even just the reading of the scripture in his life at 8 years old,
Amazing.
impress that truth on him. Praise the Lord.
It's so cool.
So that's why Kathy, in a only slightly mocking, says that she doesn't know that many 9-year-olds that were saving for seminary, but that I was. No.
Well, Demo, it's interesting. The Lord, you have a very unique background by way of education. Your dad was a pastor. You've really grown up in it and around it all your life. And even to see the Lord's hand on you personally as a PK, a pastor's kid early on, super encouraging. Praise the Lord for that.
For sure. Yeah, I thank him for that. Yeah, almost all the time. So
Yeah.
Okay, Matt.
Yeah, I think as I hear each of you even talking about these books, it makes it want to be my favorite book as well. I love Philippians. I just preached through Romans back in Montana with the college group. I'm sorry, not Romans, Ephesians.
Yeah.
But I also love Romans, Demo. But I'm going to go with a New Testament book being Matthew, presenting Jesus as the king. And I just like how he orders his book in nice, clean segments of like Sermon on the Mount, parables, miracles, Olivet Discourse. I don't know. I've always kind of liked that.
Yeah.
And then in the Old Testament, I love the book of Daniel, chapters 1-6 being about really his life and personal looks, and then eschatology. And then I like the book written by the short guy, Nehemiah. That was kind of cheesy, wasn't it?
I was like,
Yeah.
wait a second.
I actually do love the book of Nehemiah, though. So there's
Yeah.
3.
I've been reading the book of Nehemiah lately. I'm kind of at the end where he's just listing off a bunch of priests. So, you know, it's not as exciting there at the end, but that is a great, great book. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to answer that question too. It's so tough. I mean, I did last year preach the whole book of Philippians at the high school and junior high. And there is no doubt that that book has absolutely affected my thinking, even as I read the rest of the New Testament and read Paul. That book just definitely stands out. But at the same time I say that, and I haven't had the opportunity to teach it, the book that always, every time I get to it, as I'm reading it, and I'm reading it right now, it's always 2 Corinthians. And I know we've all chosen New Testament books, but that book, what I love his emphasis on sanctification throughout that book. And that's probably just a heartbeat for me personally. And a verse in that book that kind of, I think actually I heard Scott preach on this topic, but it's a verse that stood out to me, and still it kind of it always stops me. Is it's 2 Corinthians 5:14. For the love of Christ controls us, because we have concluded this, that one has died for all, therefore all have died. And he died for all, that those who live might no longer live for themselves, but for him who for their sake died and was raised. And it's actually not really that far from what Paul says in Philippians about the death of Christ and how we live and our unity in the body and all those things. But I remember a day, and I was telling some high schoolers the other day about this. I remember a day like that verse just like sticking out to me. And I came to church actually when Scott and I were serving together. I was just a lay guy, but I was playing drums on Sunday night service. And that verse, I don't know if you had taught on it that morning and I was coming back for night church, but I remember coming back to play drums and being like, hey, the love of Christ controls me. I can come and even use my little gift of the drums in service to him because he died for me. And that should be the thing that compels me, not because I have this talent, but because I want to love people because Christ loved me. And I felt like so much more free to be able to serve all of a sudden, just because of that one little verse. But all throughout 2 Corinthians, Jesus talking about sanctification, talking about Christ, talking about the death of Christ. So anyway, that one definitely stands out for me.
Yeah.
Any other ones? You guys, I mean, I appreciate Matt. You had an Old Testament book. I mean, I know we stayed New Testament, but kicking it old school. Okay. Man, I don't know. We got a little bit of time left. I'm trying to think where we want to go, where I want the conversation to go.
I have one for you though, Shay.
Oh, let's hear it.
Just real quick, not to interrupt you in the direction, but you're preaching May 17th.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about Ecclesiastes. Are you bringing it to the body? Come on.
I know. So it crossed my mind as becoming a favorite, but it's hard to say that book is a favorite, just because I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yes, my hope and my plan. So I've wavered whether I should teach the first 2 chapters of Ecclesiastes or honestly give an overview and kind of a big picture of the whole book on the 17th. So I'm praying through that and kind of working through that. But that book is amazing. It's also confusing. It's also life-changing. So, I mean, it's taken me a little bit to kind of get my arms around it, but and I don't know if I've said this in the past, I think that's part of the purpose of the book. I think one of his points is that life is like that. That life is a little bit, if I can use a big word, is it enigmatic? Enigmatic, is that the word? Right? It's a little bit, it's hard to grasp. And I think that book is a little bit hard to grasp, and I think that's part of his point as being wisdom literature and being from who I believe was the pen of Solomon. I would, while you read Ephesians, go read Ecclesiastes. Okay, so just keep reading and rereading and reading again. I will say this, and maybe I'm giving too much away now. I don't believe that the phrase when he says meaningless, or some Bibles translate it meaningless, that word vanity of vanities, I don't think that's the most helpful translation of that word, because I think it moves you in the wrong direction. Okay, I know.
The Hebrew word havel.
Havel. Yes.
Or empty or.
Yes. In fact, if you look at the bottom of your Bible, every time that word appears in Ecclesiastes, it'll say this word is commonly translated mist or vapor, or, like mist-like is, I guess, the other way to look at it. So I've been hunting. I've been reading. I just can't stop now. Now I feel like I'm going to either become a crazy person or I'm going to
Hey,
more holy.
This is May 17th, so Grace Church can begin to pray for you. I'm excited for you. What a great book. It does change, doesn't it, Shay? If you look at it as everything is meaningless, or there's joy in that, and enjoy what the Lord's given you these days of our life.
Yeah, and so I don't want to give too much away, but it's not like a New Testament epistle.
Right.
You've got to keep it in its genre of wisdom literature, and you've got to keep wrestling with Solomon. So now I want to caveat here. You said May 17th, and I've said, listen, I don't think if that's our first day back on a Sunday together, that I should preach Ecclesiastes that day. So, maybe we'll have to think through that. If that becomes, when that thing opens up, does anybody want to give a date or a timeline? Because Gavin Newsom, not so helpful. Laying down a timetable. We want to discuss that right now.
You brought it up.
I know. I'm sorry. Just because I shouldn't get up and preach vanity of vanities the first week we get back, if we get back together.
We should be joyful.
Yeah, but I could. We could do it.
It's worth the discussions, Shay, just for us to be able to say again. I think we've said from the beginning, from a leadership team perspective, from us as elders, our desire has been to love our neighbors to the best of our ability and to wisely respect our government, right? So those have been, I think, controlling principles that we want to love our neighbors and we want to wisely respect our government. And so I want those things to remain to be true, even as we, without setting a timeline. And at the same time, wisely respecting our government doesn't mean mindlessly going along with whichever government you pick. So are we talking local government, state government, federal government? Like who are we talking? I think it takes a degree of wisdom for us to figure out what it means to respect what the government is passing along in terms of, is it requirement? Is it guidelines? What is it? So I guess I say that to make the point that, throughout this, that I hope we've struck a hopeful and hope-filled chord. At no point have we said that this is ideal or this is the way we want to stay, or that if this turns into something that we're told is long-term, that we would necessarily stay with the same, not having live services the way we have started. So I just want to voice what all of us feel. And I think what all of us have said, which is we want to be together as soon as we possibly can. That's been our heart from the very beginning, under the context of how are we doing loving our neighbor and what does it mean to wisely respect our government? So I feel like we've tried to do those things to this point and we'll continue to do so. But yeah, the first kind of opportunity we have to safely and wisely gather, then I'm with everyone else saying, yeah, that's when we're going to meet. So yeah.
Okay. I like it.
That's my pause with a pastor.
That was just from your heart, no prompt at all.
There you go. That's where I'm coming from.
I love it. No, hey, of course, I think we've talked about this. We all share that same heart. We want to be back together.
Right.
So I like your phrase, safely and wisely. That's just a good word. So thanks.
Yeah.
Man, maybe we should begin to land the plane. I know there's a number of things we've already talked about. You know, the seminary class that Scott's doing on prayer, which is awesome. You've got Demo doing a class for the whole body with Jason. It's Jason Egley, I believe, and on prayer as well. That's awesome. I know tomorrow or tonight, actually, the ladies will be meeting for the gospel primer, not primer. Primer is what you put on the walls, right? Okay. Primer, which I had to do this week because the kids knocked off the toilet paper dispenser in the bathroom. So we had to, patch a hole, prime it. So sorry, that's enough potty talk.
Is there a video of you doing that? We have like a video.
Yeah, hold on. Let me show it to you. It's right here. I did want to show you guys this. Here we go. There's that guy. Hey, can you
Get him. Is this
Get outta
pause? Get out of here. Get.
Oh, yeah, we're fine. We're fine. That's all. That's all for that. Okay, we're back. That was weird. So yeah, women, you can get more information about Gospel Primer with Kristen Harvey. That happens tonight. Weekly update from Scott going out Thursdays. You can watch those. I did want to ask you guys one more time, if you have, we've talked about this every week, any recommendations, books, music, Bible verses, things that you would recommend to the body, things I don't know. What do you got? I had something that I wanted to answer Demo. Demo asked me last week because I mentioned a YouTube distraction-free addition for your browser for YouTube. I actually forgot one that I do use, which is an app called Freedom. There's an app called Freedom. It is a paid app, but you can use it on your devices. So especially for children, it's a helpful app. But you can basically set times on or websites you don't want to be able to go to for a certain time if you're trying to focus. So there you go. Demo, I saw you grab a book though.
I grabbed two. So I got Prayer on the Brain, partly knowing what Scott was going to do, partly knowing I wanted to do this with Jason. But I just got this book returned. It's kind of made its rounds through. So Dale had it, Matt Tebow had it. This is Praying the Bible with Donald Whitney. This isn't going to kill. You're going to be able to read this book easily and yet hugely impactful. I also have kind of a personal appreciation for this book and always will, because this is the first kind of Christian, how do we describe the category of what this is? This is like Christian living type of book. I don't know what else you'd call it. It's Christian living, right? Yeah. This is the first Christian living book that my son Silas ever read. I handed these out at a Upward retreat probably 2 or 3 years ago. We used them at the retreat. And Silas said, I kind of want to read through that if you'll help me. Wow. So I got to do this with my son, Silas. So this book will always have a soft spot in my heart. I still remember the day he got halfway through it and he was like, Dad, I think I'm starting to get it. I think I'm supposed to use the words of the Bible and I can use those when I'm talking to God. And I'm like, there you go. So that's Silas's, that's the whole book. You can read the whole book but that's the summary of the whole book. Use God's words when talking to God. And
do you have extras of that book right now?
I actually think we do. Yeah, I do think we could give some of these away. I think. Can
we do a giveaway right now?
Sure.
Wait, how are you going to do it? Demo or Newt?
Yeah, we should play Demo or Newt. Yeah, in the comments. You want to try it?
Sure, give it a whirl.
I don't have them in front of me. You're going to have to watch the comments, Blake.
All right. Here we go.
We gave away on Thursday, Blake and I gave away a hymnal to Melody Lawson. She was the first one to guess the 90s TV show that I played on my guitar, which was Home Improvement, which just want to say, I saw Tim Allen said that Wilson, the character from Home Improvement, was like the ultimate, socially distant person. So I'm just going to leave that right there for you guys.
Okay. So this is for the people on Facebook Live. Okay.
Okay.
And then we'll go through whoever, what do we want to say, Shay? Whoever answers it
first.
Right first? Okay. First. Everybody get ready to type. Here we go.
Okay, I'm ready.
I hope I'm up to.
I want this book.
And then we'll go through your guys' answers. But here we go. Newt or Demo? I drove a Bobcat and dump truck cleaning up construction sites for 3 years. Newt or Demo? This is for, what's the book?
Praying the Bible, Donald Whitney.
I just got that book today.
Oh, hey!
Because it's a seminary class, and how encouraging that Silas is reading it, you know?
Listen, the thing I wanted to say, I've read that book. The thing I wanted to say, it is one of those books where the title is the book.
Is the book. Yeah.
The title is the book. So, I mean, it's awesome. It's so simple. The chapters are so short and simple. Again, you can read that in no time, but it's one of those books that really, that title just captures his thesis. So
Yeah.
there you go.
And is genuinely helpful. It's a genuinely helpful book.
Yeah.
It doesn't just blow you out of the water, but is really useful.
Okay, we're starting to get some answers in, but we got to hear from you guys. So,
Okay.
Tebow, is it Newt or Demo?
I'm going with Newt.
Okay.
Tebow, have you met Newt?
No.
Okay.
That's
This is
so
awesome.
hard.
Okay. Somebody needs to contact Newt and tell him to go meet Tebow at some point. So,
Nice FaceTime. FaceTime.
oh yeah.
I think I know that Newt invents cannons. That's what I know about Newt.
That's true.
True.
He does.
That-
That's not all he
guess I
does.
gotta guess I gotta cross that one off. Okay.
Thanks for ruining that one. Everyone would have thought that was me, Matt.
Okay, so Tebow says, who is it? Newt. Okay. Shay?
I'm trying to think about how long it would take to get your license for machines like that. And there's another thing that I do know about Demo, but it's not that. So it's like, I'm going to go with Demo. I'm taking a risk.
Okay.
That's
Take more
a
risks.
I say Newt all the way.
And
All
Scott
the
says
way.
Newt. Okay, Demo, would you like to tell us who that is?
Yeah. Are the answers already in on Facebook? Has somebody already won?
We've already got some comments, so yeah, I'll say we've got some mixed.
Okay, good. Yeah, so I was going to college in South Carolina, and then I started doing seminary in South Carolina. And there was a guy that was connected there that owned a business called CleanSight, and he hired me as a college student. And I worked
No.
all through seminary.
No.
I have literally hundreds of hours in a Bobcat and a dump truck. So there you go.
Yes.
I cannot believe it. That had Newt all over it.
Dude, I'm 2 for 3, and that's all I'm saying.
That's right.
Just
And a
hanging
gal,
out
and
in the
a
basket.
friend of ours, Diane Porter, won that one.
Well
Nice.
done, Diane.
Yeah.
Well played.
Hey, I did have one other book recommendation. I'm not sure if I brought this one up before. This is Ed Welch's Running Scared.
Huh.
This is my favorite book on worry and anxiety. I recommended a devotional book that's a really good resource, but if you want, this is a more significant, like a counseling book for yourself or for somebody else. So the title is Running Scared, Fear, Worry, and the God of Rest. So this is my favorite book on those subjects. So it's Ed Welch, Running Scared. Love this book. Really helpful for me as somebody who has struggled with the sin of worry and of anxiety. He just kind of cut to the heart of what was going on when I was worried.
Huh.
One of my favorite things from this book, he describes worry as false prophecy. He's like, you're believing false prophecy when you believe you're worried. You're saying that something's going to happen in the future, and it never does. You always worry about something that's more or worse than what's actually reality. So you are a false prophet that has taken God out of the equation. So it's an atheistic false prophet. And that was just so helpful for me to hear. So love this book too.
Awesome.
Hmm.
Okay. I think that's all. I
That's
mean,
it.
that's it. It's a joy to hang out with you guys,
You
even
too.
if
That
it's
was fun.
even if it's digital. I feel
Hey.
like-
Hey, I was gonna say one thing too.
Yeah.
Less about us consuming things, and I think it's good to go through resources. But I just want to encourage people that are, all 15 of us that are together right now, to be sure that you're investing yourself into other people, right? Make sure we're calling one another. This can be a time when we're told to shelter in place, that it's just like, okay, what can I get? What can I get? And just be sure to calling somebody, like literally picking up a phone and calling somebody is huge right now. So it's getting hard a little bit out there. We got to stay joyful. We got to stay,
Sure.
as Denise Holder says, we got to stay strong.
Mhm.
Well, she said this. She said, choose joy, stay strong. This isn't 40 years. And I just want her to know she would really get along with Solomon in the book of Ecclesiastes. So I just want her to know this, and I appreciate her.
Hey, big takeaway for me today.
Uh,
The Fab Five. That's our name.
so helpful.
Fab
The Fab
Five.
Here we are.
Love it.
Yes. God, you might have to grow a quarantine stash like that again. Let's get that thing growing. Come on.
Come on, baby.
All right.
Hey, no, before we say goodbye, I just want to make sure everybody knows 10:30 online only service this Sunday.
Yeah.
We're back online at least. And we want to make sure you know about that. And you can definitely log on at 10:30 Sunday morning. We're there. Pastor Scott's preaching. We're doing it. So it's good to hang with you guys. Glad to do it. And we'll catch you.